Okay, Shalom. This is the introductory shiur to part 8 of our look at the Rambam's Hilchos Birchas and mitzvah. We're going to be looking at the topic of Shehechiyanu, which is interesting because Shehechiyanu usually doesn't come on a mitzvah. It's the bracha is not a Birchas and mitzvah. It's not a Shehechiyanu. Shehechiyanu is a Birchas Shelach V'Adoya. It's a bracha of praise. Our third category versus what we've been studying is our second category. So let's see how it connects. The Gemara here says, "Also sukkah atzmo." Somebody that's making his own sukkah. Omer bracha tashvakin machom shehechiyanu kimanu b'ginal azman zeh. So he makes a shehechiyanu as he builds a sukkah. Then when he goes to sit in his sukkah, right on the mitzvah of sukkahs, so Omer bracha tashvakin machom shehechiyanu tzvanu leisheba sukkah. So he makes a shehechiyanu when he builds the sukkah, and then he makes a birchas mitzvah when he fulfills the mitzvah, the kiyum mitzvah, which is what we saw in previous year. So our first question is, what generates this chiyuv of saying Shehechiyanu? And the second thing is, what about the manufacturing of the mitzvah? Has the Shehechiyanu recited at this point and not at the point of the fulfillment of the mitzvah when the Birchas HaMitzvah is said? Okay, the Rambam says as follows: Kol mitzvah shehi mizman lizman. The Rambam's going to list three categories, so pay attention, and as we're reading this Rambam, take notice of the three categories. Kol mitzvah shehi mizman lizman. Any mitzvah that happens from time to time. You go in shofar, sukkah, lulav, mikra megillah, and ner Chanukah. Right, so these mitzvahs happen from on a fixed calendar dates from time to time. V'chein, and also second category, kol mitzvah shehi kinyan lo. You go in tzitzis tefillin mezuzah makah. The second category is any mitzvah that is one that's something that you purchase, like tzitzis tefillin mezuzah, or a fence for your house. V'chein, and here's a third category: mitzvah she'ena tadira ve'ena mitzuya b'chol eis. So mitzvah that doesn't happen all that often. Sheharihi dome lemitzvah shemizman zman, and that's similar to a mitzvah that happens from time to time, like the chagim. You go in milos beno, like milah, pidyon haben, right, when you redeem your firstborn son. Mevarach aleha b'shas asiyasa shehechiyanu. So all three of these categories, when you manufacture the mitzvah, when you're putting together the mitzvah, so then you also make a shehechiyanu. Now, if you didn't make a bracha on sukkah and lulav when you made the shehechiyanu at the time, you didn't make a shehechiyanu, sorry, at the time of the manufacturing, so then you would make the shehechiyanu when you fulfill the mitzvah. Okay, so the question that we have on this is, how can the shehechiyanu be recited b'di'eved at the time of fulfilling the mitzvah? In other words, if it's supposed to be done at the time of manufacturing, so then how can it apply later at the time when you fulfill the mitzvah if you had forgotten to say it when you manufactured it? Okay, and his explanation to this Rambam, the Kesef Mishnah says as follows: Kol mitzvah shehi mizman. So says the Kesef Mishnah, Lefi shara Rabbeinu tzas mitzvah shemevarchen aleim shehechiyanu v'ksasan she'ein mevarchen ba litein tam b'davar dechol midei d'zman l'zman ka'asi. O she'einu matzu b'chol eis t'damei the mitzvah ba mizman l'zman chen kol mitzvah shehi kinyan lo b'chol elu mevarchen shehechiyanu. So Kesef Mishnah says something very strange. He says, instead of there being one general svarah that the Rambam recognized and then went ahead and listed the halacha, here the Rambam saw just random places where you make a shehechiyanu, and therefore he tried to come up with an explanation, and therefore he broke things down into three categories. So our question on Kesef Mishnah is, why isn't there one clear svarah that tells us when to say shehechiyanu? Why is it that he describes it as the Rambam was, saw that, and here you make a shehechiyanu, here you do, and then he had to try to categorize it himself. Okay, the Rambam in a tshuva, in a response, it's actually a pretty long tshuva for the Rambam. This is, we just took a portion of it. The Rambam says this: we didn't bring these three categories. Why do we have to have three categories? It says the Rambam to exclude all the other mitzvos from the shehechiyanu. Any of these other mitzvos, like taking off challah or giving tithes or the like, lo yivar shehechiyanu asiyas elo mitzvos adomeim. So since they don't come from time to time, they're not saying that you buy, and they're not infrequent mitzvos, they come up pretty frequently, we don't make a shehechiyanu. Because they don't fit into one of the categories. And he says, and look at the Mishnah Torah, you'll see that we said it also. Okay, so what are the mitzvahs that don't receive a shehechiyanu missing? What factor do they not have? And as we know the three categories, but why don't these mitzvahs fit into one of the categories? Why do they not get a shehechiyanu? Okay, what about them is lacking? Okay, the next source we have is the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon makes an interesting point. He says as follows: "V'yivarech," he says, "Shehechiyanu tzarech over l'siyason." So he says the Shehechiyanu has to be said before the mitzvah is done. Okay, so it has to be done. You can't do it. Say the Shehechiyanu afterwards. Okay, so so that's, he says it's just like a Birchas mitzvah, it has to be done beforehand. So when the Gra says this, he's talking about Hanukkah candles. That when you make the Shehechiyanu on the first night of Hanukkah, so you have to say the Shehechiyanu before you light the candle. Right. So now the question is, does Shehechiyanu have to be said before all mitzvos? Right? How does that work logistically? What's the svarah here? So how do we understand this this Gra? Okay, the Rambam, when he talked about, we're going to use these last two sources to understand the svarah. The Rambam, when he talked about Birchas Shehechiyanu, he said as follows: Birchas acheros v'dvarim acherim har. This is not in our parak. It's referring to the Birchas Shehechiyanu, not Birchas mitzvah. It says Birchas acheros v'dvarim acherim har she'ein behem psicha v'lo chasima tiknu chacham derech shevach l'adel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So all these other brachos and different things that don't have an opening and closing of the bracha. Remember we learned about that. So the Chacham instituted derech shevach l'adel HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way of praising Hashem. Like Birchas Tefillah. Right? If you buy something big, like a big new house or some sort of maybe a car, so then you say Shehechiyanu Kimanu. That's when you say Shehechiyanu. The Rambam says that this fits into this category. He says brachos rabos tiknu chachamim derech shevach l'adaya. There are a lot of different brachos that the chachamim instituted as a way of praising and thanking God and requesting things. They list chorus of Bari Tamis that we're always speaking about, mentioning God. That's the idea behind these brachos. So even though you didn't get any benefit, you still have to make a bracha in order to mention God. Okay, so those are our questions, and bli neder, we will get to them when we have shiur. Okay, shalom.